Um, you can do so much just with chicken breast, right? Like you can have a plan like, okay, we're going to do chicken marinara on Monday and Wednesday. And then Tuesday, we're going to grill it. We're going to have like barbecue chicken breasts on Tuesday and Thursday. And you kind of can go through your week with this sort of blank slate of your protein, your carb, and your veggie, and just change up those flavor profiles a little bit with things you might already have on hand.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Sean Morgan, a full-time educator and personal financial coach and speaker, and I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. I'm super excited to have Jessica Rice on the show today. Jessica is the recipe development manager at budgetbytes.com, and we'll talk about what Budget Bytes is here as you go through the show. But needless to say, we're talking about budgeting, we're talking about bites, we're all about frugal food today. So I am super excited to dive into this as part of our whole season-long discussion on frugal living. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just dive right on with this. When you talk about frugal eating, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be a frugal eater? What doesn't it mean? How is it maybe different than like cheap and low quality eating?
So, from a Budget Bytes perspective, frugal eating really means being intentional with your food dollars. I like to think of what we do at Budget Bytes as helping people live with an attitude of abundance instead of an attitude of what they can't have or what they can't afford. It doesn't necessarily mean buying low quality, never getting a convenience food. It's really kind of trying to keep your cost per serving low on food waste, and making meals that are actually filling. So you're not constantly running out to the grocery store, which of course is not only grocery dollars, it's gas money, it's time, which we know, of course, is like the most precious asset that we all have.
Yeah, I love that. There's like the attitude piece, and then there's the cost piece. And then I love how you're talking about just like the being filled. I feel like there's more to that than just like the physical feeling of being full, but there's also just like there's like a health and rejuvenation piece about food that actually fills you is good, like good, quality solid food that's gonna be useful to your body and things like that. So I think that that's huge because for me, the way I always frame frugality is about maximizing value as well as minimizing cost, right? You don't want to have, high value, high cost because that's luxury, right? But
Mhm.
low value, low cost is, those things that are just going to break or in the food world, that just like dirt cheap food that's just, greasy and doesn't serve your body well, right? You want to have, high quality food, but also inexpensive food. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today because for me, okay, I'm just gonna bring in why am I talking to Budget Bites? I've been trying to get my food spending in check um, because I was spending about the average amount that someone spends on food, and I realized, wait a minute, average is high because there's 50% people going above that and then 50% people below that. So I want to be below that amount. And I started being more intentional with my food, came across Budget Bites, and I've been using a Budget Bites for like 70% of my meals just because there's a ton of things on there and I'm able to just eat really inexpensively, but also really good food. So I'm not being paid by Budget Bites to endorse Budget Bites. I just have really appreciated it, and that's why I've connected with Jessica today. So that's what's driving me to have this conversation with you. And to going back to that average line, there's some people that are spending obscene amounts of money on their food costs. I'm just wondering, in your experience, what are the biggest mistakes people make that drive up those costs to unnecessarily high levels?
Yeah, so I mean, I live in a very rural part of Tennessee, so outskirts of Nashville, but my like where I can shop is for my day-to-day needs a little bit more limited. So I'm relying on a super Walmart or a really tiny grocery chain, that kind of thing. But it doesn't really matter because it applies to even like a higher end grocery store. I feel like the biggest mistake that I see people make, or that I am also guilty of making from time to time, is shopping without a plan. Because these big box stores like your super Walmart or your super Target, places like that, like they are relying on you falling into the advertising, right? Like those big shiny sale signs or buy one get one deals. But if you go in there with a plan and you stick to your grocery list, you're much less likely to treat yourself down every single aisle. So I feel like that's one of the big ones. Impulse buys just kill you. They add up. It's $5 here, $5 there. You end up buying two of something when you really only need one because you think you're getting a 2-for-1 kind of deal. So really sticking to the plan, going in with a list. I also find overbuying fresh produce is something that people do a lot. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I'm a mom and I work, more than full time, like everyone listening to this does. I feel like when you go in, you just are like, oh, I want my kid to eat this vegetable and try this fruit and do this. And then you've bought so many fresh produce items that they end up going bad before they can be eaten or used. When in reality, I go to the grocery store multiple times a week. So I can kind of wait and buy my fresh produce that way. But, you can also switch to frozen. You can switch to frozen produce for certain things. And then you get a little bit more bang for your buck that way. And also, shelf stable wise, you're going to have those things available to you for impulse cooking or doing a meal on the fly. You're not relying on fresh spinach in your fridge. You have frozen spinach that is perfectly good. Relying heavily on takeout and convenience meals, just I find a lot of people end up doing that because there's nothing readily available at home. Or if you're picking your kids up, running them from one practice to the other, an activity to another, and you forgot to buy a snack or bring a snack or whatever. So you end up going through a drive-through. Those visits can really drive up people's food related bills as well. And the other one that I'm certainly guilty of, especially when I go to a more special grocery store that has kind of fun new produce from time to time, is just buying ingredients for aspirational cooking. Like, oh, I've really been wanting to try, persimmons. I'm going to buy these. And then I just don't have a plan for them. I come home with them and I'm a chef, right? So, I mean, I cook every single day, all the time. But instead it just ends up going to waste or doesn't get used as intended. So I feel like those are probably my four big like no-nos as far as mistakes people make.
Yeah, I feel like all those basically center around a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're going to fall down these different avenues one way or the other, right? And when you talked about you got takeout because there's nothing readily available at home, we always make a joke with my family. It's like I looked in the fridge and man, there was only ingredients in there, right? It's just one of those things where you're like, oh, why can't there just be a hamburger ready to pop out for me, right? No, you got to make it yourself, but or have a plan ahead and do the prep work ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like a huge thing is that foresight, that intentionality about where you're going to eat, when you're going to eat, is going to handle a lot of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about meal planning as basically the foundation of this, and I feel like there's a couple of different problems with meal planning that people encounter. One is it's overwhelming, and two, they feel like they're gonna eat the same thing over and over again. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna get stuck in this, boring routine as opposed to I can go out and have whatever I want and all that stuff. Like, or they like, oh, I made this plan, but now I don't want it. I don't know. There's just like these different perceptions around meal planning that can be difficult. Can you address those and how people can overcome that, or why maybe meal planning is actually not as bad as all that?
Yeah, so Budget Bytes, like we are really big on meal planning and we're, I consider us one of the leaders kind of pushing that still. But I do agree that after a long week of work teaching kids or working in a restaurant or whatever, to come home and do more work is like a little bit like, it makes you feel a little bit like it's maybe more of a daunting task than it should be. But I do find that planning just 3 to 4 meals or dinners is a lot easier for people than being like, I'm going to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and if I'm lucky, a dessert planned out for every single day of the week. I feel like that is not as attainable. And I feel like, you have to make some room for spontaneity once in a while because, life just happens, right? So it's kind of interesting because my background before even working for Budget Bytes, of course, was in the restaurant world and actually education teaching at a like culinary at a college, but just trying to help people pick one protein, one carb, one vegetable, and kind of figure out new ways to play with those 3 ingredients that feels new and different and doesn't really feel like a chore. And if you really do want to go out and eat at a restaurant one night a week, I think that you should, if you have the means to do that, and you can budget in other areas of your life to make that happen for you. Same with, if you're really big on like, oh, I want to buy as much organic as I can, like you can do that and then skimp in other areas of your food budget to make that affordable and possible. And that's what a lot of restaurants do, right? Like you up the price of a drink on the cocktail menu to make up for where you might cut costs on an entree to make sure people are ordering that entree. So it's similar just for everyday folks too, just to kind of try to balance that. But I do think trying to pick a protein, pick a carb, and pick a veggie for at least your meal planning purposes is really helpful. You can go to any grocery store now and get that giant mega pack of chicken breasts, and like they're cheap. It's like, I mean, I guess that's a relative term, but you can find that for anywhere from $10 or $9 and change to, 14, $15. And I have friends up in Canada who are like, that would be like a $30 pack of chicken up here. But you can do so much just with chicken breast, right? Like you can have a plan like, okay, we're going to do chicken marinara on Monday and Wednesday. And then Tuesday, we're going to grill it. We're going to have like barbecue chicken breasts on Tuesday and Thursday. And you kind of can go through your week with this sort of blank slate of your protein, your carb, and your veggie, and just change up those flavor profiles a little bit with things you might already have on hand. Canned goods, dry spices and herbs, things like that. So I feel like if we can just try to make meal planning a little bit less daunting, it would be relying on things that you already have in your pantry at home and just really focusing on that fresh protein, fresh carb, and fresh veggie.
Yeah, so are you saying that you choose just one carb you're gonna remix throughout the whole week, or do you choose one protein and then mix in different carbs and veggies to go with that protein?
It's really whatever works for you. Like if you're gonna be like, all right, I need something super easy. I have one day, 2 hours, 3 hours to prep this food. I mean, you can steam a bunch of rice and then that rice becomes just a simple side for, you know, chicken parmesan or like a creamy garlic chicken dish. It also could become fried rice. It could also become you could even do kind of like an arancini or something like that. Like you could, or a rice salad. Like you can add a bunch of chopped veggies to that and a salad dressing and have this kind of whole grain that you've used throughout the entire week in a completely different way. But if it works into your time budget as well, where you can be like, all right, I'm going to do brown rice this day and I'm going to make quinoa this day and kind of like use those grains in different ways, you can. I really think it's relying on those pantry staples. And you talked about you look into the fridge and all you see is ingredients. We joke and say that there are people who either came from ingredient households or condiment households. Sometimes the condiment households work out, right? Because you have so many hot sauces and things that are already there ready to play with. But yeah, really just kind of trying to think blank slate, a protein, a carb, and a veggie, and then using what you already have on hand to keep those things interesting.
Right. I like this because if you like just pull up a random recipe, I swear anytime I pull up a new recipe, there's something that's not in my cupboard or not in my fridge already that I need. Like, oh, do you have this exact, rice wine vinegar that you need? I'm like, no, I don't, right? But instead, focusing on what you do have and using that to create the flavors in the meal, I think it is powerful. That way, you are not only saving money by not purchasing more, but you're using what you already have, so it's not going to go to waste. Whenever you clean out your fridge later.
Yeah, and on Budget Bytes, we have the ability on our website to go and search by ingredient. So if you don't have time to get out to the store or you forgot to get the brown rice that you had planned or the black beans or whatever, you can type in quinoa or you can type in lentils and it'll come up with dozens, if not more than that, of ways that you could use something that you already have on hand. And as far as like, people are always trying to make their recipe just different enough from someone else's recipe where they're like, I'm going to use white balsamic or this or whatever, like kind of throw you a little bit of a curveball. But I think just educating ourselves on like, okay, that's an acid. And I know that balsamic vinegar is sweeter than a red wine vinegar. So can I use, a different acid, a different vinegar, and add a little bit of something sweet to kind of give it that same note? I really think if we can approach food as curiously as we do, like education as a great example, then it's like you're adding more tools to your own toolkit. And you'll really make your pantry work for you instead of you laboring over looking into this pantry with a dead stare, right? So it's harder for people who don't enjoy cooking, but if you can kind of tune into what you do and don't like about it, you can make it a little easier on yourself.
Yeah. And I think, for anyone that says they don't enjoy cooking, I'd say just learn how to make better food and you'll enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Because if what you're cooking and then eating at the end of it is like, it's not that exciting. But if you can, learn how to make really scrumptious food, you're gonna enjoy cooking more because the end result is so much better. So I think that that is a something to consider as well.
Yeah, and too, we do eat with our eyes. And you don't have to be like a chef who knows how to plate something like your favorite restaurant or anything, but just trying to think in terms of how you teach kids, like how they teach kids how to eat, colorful, small bits of different things. So you kind of pique their curiosity. And I mean, we can totally play those same tricks on ourselves too. So I think like the more options you give yourself, or the more colors and the more textures or aromas, like you actually might end up really enjoying it if you kind of approach it a little bit more curiously and less rigid.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Mhm.
When people are approaching cooking, protein is it's a pretty heavy part of the American diet, meat proteins particularly, and that can get expensive fast. We already talked about, the big bulk chicken and all that stuff, but I mean, like looking at like, beefs or porks or things like that, the cost can just get obscene very quickly to for these meats. Do you have any advice on approaching protein in a budget-friendly manner that's going to help people have yummy food, but also not blow the budget on, cuts of meat?
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually kind of funny, and I love the protein question because before I started working for Budget Bites, I owned a vegan restaurant in Nashville. So I'm used to answering protein questions. But I feel like for the average person who wants to include meat in their diet, approaching meat as a supporting ingredient, not the star of the show. There's cultures all around the world where you get, a little tiny portion of meat, and then the rest of it is sort of the rest of your plate is fresh vegetables and grains and really filling, things like that. Lots of fiber, that starch, things like that. So I feel like using meat as a supporting ingredient is a great idea for people to try, or get on that eggs, beans, lentils, tofu train, like peanut butter, one of the budget protein staples. And I really feel like we should all try to be a little bit more lean, like, lean heavier on those ingredients if budget is really an issue. Um, and then, of course, like we talked about with the chicken breasts, larger packs of meat. Um, and as a general rule, you're going to pay less for a whole chicken and then butchering it yourself. You're going to have more meals, more cuts to work with out of a whole chicken versus just going and buying, a butchered meat that's already been prepared essentially to a certain point for you. The amount of labor that goes into food production is often what makes it so much more expensive. Some butcher or some chef had to touch that meat X amount of times to get to those tenderloins or to get those drumsticks removed from the chicken, that kind of a thing. So it really does add to the cost overall when you consider the time spent. It is almost like a convenience food, right? So if you're going for protein and you want to, really stretch your budget as far as you can get a whole chicken and then butcher it yourself, things like that. But I really do think that we need to rely more on plant-based proteins in general. But that is one of my kind of strategic ways of using protein instead of cutting it. Like, I don't think we need to think about like, I'm going to give myself a little teeny tiny portion, because throughout your whole plate, your journey around your plate, maybe you have a chicken breast on there, you have some broccoli or some spinach salad, whatever. You're going to get probably more than the daily protein that you need in that one plate, even if your portion of chicken is smaller, because there's protein in broccoli, there's protein in spinach, there's protein in that sauce. So you don't need to overdo your protein. If you're eating a balanced diet with those vegetables and those starches and grains, whole grains, you're going to get that protein that you need for the whole day.
Awesome. Yeah. And I just want to highlight a couple of things that you were pointing out. So one of them is, just using less. We were using like a meal delivery service. Like, you'd make this thing, but they like send you all the ingredients. And I discovered that if I just used half as much meat, the meal still worked just fine, right? And it was just like it was a revelation to me, like, oh, I can use just less, or like I can stretch the meat by like adding in oats into a ground meat, or lentils to make the shredded meat or whatever, like expand more. And the sauce is still there, which is where a lot of that flavor comes in. So you don't have to have just huge wad of meat to get the same experience, but you can also stretch it in that way. And I think that that's a really important thing. Then also just, making it, instead of saying like, oh, I'm looking for a chicken recipe, you're looking for a noodle recipe with, some slices of chicken on it or something like that. That not the star of the show thing I thought was a really interesting mindset shift, because so many people um, are thinking of the meat as the recipe and then what goes with it, as opposed to the thing that you're eating is the majority of it is actually not the meat. It's going to be the noodles, the rice, the bread or whatever that is, and then you can add meat into that. So I think those two are important things. And then this is just a random idea that I've discovered. You're talking about getting like a whole chicken, a a rotisserie chicken at like Costco or Sam's Club is a loss leader. They sell it to you for less than it costs them to produce it. So the price per pound on a whole rotisserie chicken from one of those types of places is absurd. It's $5 for like a whole 3-pound chicken at Costco, and you're just not going to get that price per pound buying it in any other
Right.
format. So I think you can just be creative on how you're going to go about getting those things. I love the butcher yourself piece, and that just made me think of this extra step you can take as well, where they've prepared it and put beautiful seasonings on it for you, and
Totally.
it's still inexpensive, and you can butcher it yourself then, and use the meats and other things.
Yeah, and you can also make your own broth or stock from that chicken carcass, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, I really feel like, yeah, it pays to do a little bit extra effort because you can have little ice cube tray of that broth or that stock that you made just ready to go for everyday cooking when you're making rice or something like that. But like everything, this is like a life experience and kind of your own journey to get to being a better or more thrifty home cook. And I feel like we all should, be curious and also forgiving. It's okay.
Yeah, if you don't feel like boiling a chicken carcass to make your own stock, you don't have to. It's something you could do.
Yeah.
It's not required.
Yeah.
That's just interesting that there's so many different things we can do, so many different cuts or shifts we can make to just save a little bit here and there and
Mhm.
still eat delicious food at the same time. Okay, I think the elephant in the room, the last main question I want to ask you is just, keeping these little humans full. If you got, a whole gaggle of humans running around in your house, how can we keep our costs down while also, feeding kids, especially when you got picky kids or kids that are constantly hungry? What are your thoughts on that?
So I have two formerly picky kids, I guess I could say. My stepdaughter is 16 now, so I know what that girl will eat and will not eat at this point. And my daughter is 4. So really, for me as a mom, like not even just talking to you as like a chef for Budget Bites, but I always try to offer one familiar food at every meal to my 4-year-old. So I know, and I got lucky, but I know this kid will eat peas or broccoli, like something green. Like if I need something green on the plate, I know I can rely on those. So I pretty much introduce them almost every meal or every other meal. Like it's something that she can rely on that I know she's going to start eating. And then she kind of gets curious about what else is on her plate. Um, it's a safe meal, right? So like what your kids will or won't eat. And we actually on the blog just did a partnership with No Kid Hungry, which is an amazing nonprofit. And we put together, I think it was a list of 10 kid approved recipes. Like we hear from people who homeschool their children or home economics classes that will write to us and be like, hey, we did this meatball recipe in home ec and all the kids loved it and their parents loved it and little things like that. So I really think it will be easier to cook and keep your kids happy if you involve them in the process a little bit too. Um, I find that giving my daughter like the task of, I got her one of those like Montessori cooking sets and she'll go and she'll do the cucumber salad. Like I can pretty much always depend. She can chop up the cucumbers next to me and then she'll be happy to eat it because she made it. Little things like that. But yeah, I feel like consistency matters almost more than variety when it comes to feeding kids. Like if and reintroducing ingredients that maybe didn't hit before, like reintroducing them again. They're going to see it a couple of times. And too, like you can choose ingredients that you're like, you know what, my kid tried sauteed green beans, didn't love it, but you can put that on a salad. Like you can make yourself a niçoise salad the next day, so it's not like you're going to put that in the compost bin or your trash, right? So thinking in ways like that too, of making like a safe menu that if it doesn't hit with them, you can at least use it anyway in a new recipe.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for those ideas. It's about just helping them grow into being an adult eater, right? And you just gotta, keep introducing them in different ways. I love the familiar piece. Give them something they can kind of hold on to. I served my kids eggplant for the first time a couple weeks back, and they just took one look at it and went, not happening, right? There wasn't anything familiar on the plate though, so that was kind of difficult for them. So just having something that's kind of safe that they can start with, that I think that's a great idea. And then reintroducing things, right? Your kids aren't going to like something and then you're going to try it again and then again and then again and then the next time you introduce it they're going to be like, oh, I like this. You're like, you told me you hated that like a month ago. Then be
Yeah.
like, I don't know. All right, the kids just kind of do that. So I think that's a great, those are two great ideas. Okay, wrapping this up, I just got two more questions for you, Jessica. My first question is, uh, if someone has a question about lowering their food spending, they want to know more about Budget Bites, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so definitely visit budgetbytes.com. We have hundreds, I believe actually in the next 6 months, we're going to hit our 2000th recipe on the blog, which is wild, but we have hundreds of affordable tested recipes and everything is broken down by cost. So that is something that really sets us apart from other websites offering free recipes. Um, so we do it, our costing, the way that we do it is shown on the blog. We do it like a restaurant does it. So you can really see like, okay, this calls for a half a cup of heavy cream. Like how much does a half a cup of heavy cream cost? You know what I mean? And like, if you start using a lot of Budget Bites recipes, you'll realize that you're repeating certain ingredients a lot. So you always want to have those on hand. It'll kind of help you get a handle on what your staple ingredients might turn into if you're really committed to home cooking more often. We also have meal prep guides. We have free meal prep guides. We also have like you can like sign up for Budget Bites Plus, which is a different kind of added service. We have pantry staples lists, so we can kind of help get you started. And those lists are created from some of our most popular recipes. So like you can rely on going in, typing in ground turkey into our ingredient search engine and finding like dozens and dozens and dozens of like ground turkey recipes. But yeah, we want to make things practical, enjoyable, sustainable. But if you visit our our website, budgetbytes.com, we also are on every single social media outlet. And social media for us is actually really fun because we'll do test certain recipes. We'll show you what didn't work out for us, what did work out for us, and kind of try some viral recipes so you don't have to. Like during Thanksgiving, there was like $40 Aldi Thanksgiving dinner to feed 10 people or something like that along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. We actually made it. Like we went out and bought it, made it, showed you what the table would look like, and said like yay or nay, would this actually feed 10 people? So you don't have to go waste your money guessing. We take out a lot of that guesswork for you, and we also take requests. So we have like kind of dedicated fans because we've been around since 2009 that will send us a message and be like, hey, I'm really struggling, I need more tofu recipes. And we're like, all right. So our calendar really ends up getting dictated by a lot of the feedback that we get. So social media and our website are the best places to get in touch with us.
Fantastic. And I just want to, throw out here that I heartily endorse a Budget Bites. I can't say this enough. I use it myself constantly. So I make 5 meals. I shop once a week, and I make 5 meals based on my shopping once a week. And then, I got 2 flex days for leftovers, or, we went out to eat, or we just had something simple that we could just make by whipping it up, right? And shopping for that, I've been able to spend around $60 a week on my food spending. And
Yeah.
that's covering lunches and breakfasts and my meals here. And I've been very intentional about choosing, really inexpensive meals and reducing my meats in my meals. But I mean, like $60 a week is a really small amount for a family of four. I've got another little baby, but he's not eating yet. But like, family of four. I've got an 8-year-old that eats like he's 13 though. Okay. So I mean, I've got a family of four here. We're spending very little compared to, the average on our food. So it's very helpful having those prices. You can search by how much a meal costs.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to spend less than $10. I want to spend less than $20 on my meals. Like that's a fantastic feature. And then I'm really enjoying that, just by signing up for a free account, I was able to save recipes that I've liked, and I can go back to them later. So I really like Budget Bites. Of course, all of this information applies to many, many other things out there, because you can use these ideas to just prepare yourself to start cooking more frugally. Better food, inexpensive food that's going to fill you up. That's kind of the whole idea here. Uh, Jessica, it's been awesome having you on the show. I just have my last question for you that I ask all my guests. What's your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
That's really important to me because I just enrolled my daughter in a school here that, of course, I, put a lot of thought into where she might go and what the environment would be like. And I know how hard teachers work. So I have like forever and ever so much respect. But I really feel the one thing I want to drive home for people is to be forgiving. So if you do go over your budget, you can always get back on track the next time you pick up your fork. Like you really can. And we're here for you to type in those ingredients that you're afraid might go to waste and make sure that you use them. But I really think relying on having a solid playbook for pantry staples and also not being afraid of that freezer section. And I'm not talking the processed food in the freezer section. I'm talking about your fruits and your vegetables is going to save you so much money. And those things that are canned and frozen are picked at the ripest they could possibly be. So still a lot of nutrition there. And yeah, those are like probably my two big pieces of advice for teachers and everybody really that are watching their dollars right now, which I feel like is such a huge issue. So this relates to so many people, and thank you guys for the work you do every day taking care of our kids when we're not. So mad props.
Well, thank you, Jessica, so much for coming on the show. This has been a ton of fun.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was a fantastic episode. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now for my cliff notes, my top takeaways from this episode. I've got a lot, so I don't think I'm even going to number them this time. I'm just going to throw them at you. An attitude of abundance. That's what we're about. Keep your cost per serving low. That's a key. Make filling food. Really important that the food is filling and nutritious and not just garbage. Shopping without a plan is what's going to get you into trouble. And this includes falling prey to advertising, overbuying produce, getting takeout instead of having a plan before you go out and do errands with your kids, or aspirational cooking, buying an ingredient because you want to use it. Like, oh, I really want to put this fresh vegetable into my meal. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to do it. So having a plan is going to avoid all of those and keep you out of trouble when you are shopping. Planning doesn't have to be a month-long ordeal or even a week-long ordeal. You can just do 3 days of just dinners and have that plan. That is going to help you stay on track, even just doing that little bit. You don't have to have every single thing that's going to go into your body planned at what time and all these other things. Just do enough meals to get you from now to the next time you go to the store, and then do the next one, and just take it in little bite-sized chunks. You can plan for things in your budget if you are intentional about it that are not necessarily always inexpensive. Going out to eat, eating organic foods, getting fresh local produce. These types of things you can put into your budget, and it won't make your cheapest way of spending money on food, but it will be what matters to you. If these things matter to you, put them into your budget, take from somewhere else, but you can't have these things and not pay attention to your food spend. You've got to keep that in check so that way you can add in these things that matter to you, such as organic foods or whatever, to be able to balance that out. I thought this was a really, really fun idea. You can search by ingredient on Budget Bytes. You can do this in other places, and I've actually done this with AI. I'll take a picture of my pantry and say, this is what I've got, what can I make? And it'll spit out some recipe ideas, which I think is really, really fun. But you're just saying, hey, I've got this protein, I've got this, pasta, I've got this or that. This is what I want to make. What can I make with this? Budget Bytes will give you some ideas. I think it's a fantastic idea. Pick a carb, a protein, and a veggie and plan around that. This is another great piece of planning where you choose a single protein. Usually you don't want to buy 6 proteins because that's expensive and they might go to waste. Buy a single protein, remix it, change it around. Do chicken, work with that. Take a break from chicken if you need to. Bring in those vegetable proteins or plant-based proteins, and then you can use ham or you can even use ground beef, but not too much because it's a little expensive. But just pick one and then remix it. Go with the same carb in a different way or new carbs or a different veggie and bring it all in. I love this idea too. Educate yourself on substitutes. Don't buy a new ingredient if you can substitute with something you already have that'll do basically the same thing. Just because it says, red wine versus white wine vinegar doesn't mean you have to get that one versus this one. Just know the difference and see what you can do to substitute it. As a unrefined palate like myself, I doubt you'll be able to tell the difference. So just keep in mind that you don't have to buy exactly what it says in the recipe all the time if you can figure out the substitute. And this led her to say, approach food with curiosity. Be a lifelong learner about food, because this is going to allow you to dive in and make those changes and make those adjustments that are going to make your food better and tastier and easier to handle. Meat as a supporting ingredient, not the star, is going to save you a lot of money. You can also butcher it yourself, get alternative proteins, find it in bulk. These are all ways that you can get meat at a reduced cost. And then for your kids, involve them in the process. Make it their food so they're more likely to eat it. Reintroduce ingredients, even if they didn't like it the first time, and put something familiar on their plate so that way they can start there and then branch out into the other parts of the plate. Those are all great ideas to get kids involved in your already low-cost meals. You don't have to change anything and only buy ramen noodles because that's the only thing they're going to eat. No. You bring the kids into the adult world of eating with these strategies that will allow them to eat healthy, low-cost foods. And then if you make a mistake on your budget, forgive yourself and get back on track. I think that is a fantastic piece of advice to wrap this up. And remember that by doing this, you are not only saving money on your food, you're going to be able to live a richer life because you'll have better food. And all of these things are going to help you to become wealthy. But as a teacher, you are already rich. Your wallet just needs to catch up. If you would like help on your personal financial situation, go to teachermoneyshow.com/coaching and you'll be able to find different ways that I can help you there. If you would like to participate in spreading this message of financial empowerment to teachers, I would encourage you to talk to your administrator or to your district level about going to SeanKMorgan.com to find more information there. And regardless of which one of those you need, please like and subscribe so that way we can spread the reach of this more. Leave a 5-star rating and review. That's going to help more teachers find this. And then turn around and tell a teacher friend. I really appreciate it. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.